But I want to start with the most frequently asked question, and it's one we have addressed here on the show. But with new viewers tuning in, Sam, why did they build these homes in the ocean?
Yeah, that's the question we all get. That's the comments that always pop up on anytime there's a social media post. And the best answer is they weren't built in the ocean. They had about 200 to 300 yards of beach in front of them when they were constructed in the 1970s and the 1980s, with an 8 to 12 foot man-made dune that had been built by hand, dug by hand in the 1920s and the 1930s by, post Great Depression, the WPA, and the CCC. And then we're sitting down on the Outer Banks from Sandbridge to basically Cape Fear to build dunes along the oceanfront. And those dunes held until the last 10 years. And then things have just gone haywire. And we've gotten this blowout situation in Buxton. And there is another piece to this. And the video that's up on the screen right now, just to the top of that video, is an old jetty. An old breakwater, an old terminal groin. Actually, it is a true jetty. There was a pair of jetties built. When that land to the top of the screen was a Navy and Coast Guard base, a Cold War era naval intelligence base, a monitor for submarines. And those jetties were there, and they did actually do the job of protecting the base and the areas to the north and down to where the lighthouse used to stand in Buxton. Those jetties have been compromised over the last 30 years. They weren't maintained. The one jetty right at where the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse used to be is being planned to be rebuilt next year as part of a beach nourishment project that Dare County is going to pay for itself to try and address this rapid erosion issue that came up. It was originally going to be in 2027. Ball's moving to get it in 2026. Obviously, that is not going to help these homeowners who've lost their houses, who've lost their pools, who've lost their septic tanks. So, no, the houses weren't built in the ocean. So that's why when Tower Circle Drive disappeared, and there is a little bit of complicated regulatory issues that we can get into as well about that. Tower Circle Drive is actually a private road. That's not a public state North Carolina maintained road. That's a private road. So there's that angle, as well as the fact that the beach itself, well, the beach that's supposed to be in front of those houses that's on the screen right now, that's Cape Hatteras National Seashore. Then you got to throw in the whole Coastal Area Management Act of North Carolina has on how close you can build to the closest vegetative dune line. That's why you can't move these houses. There's nowhere behind them to move them. There's just so much has happened here in Buxton itself that, really, again, 10 years ago, not a problem. Now, Beach Nourishment Project number 3 on the way in next year. That may be too late for even more houses because we got another winter and early spring to get through before that stand starts being pumped on the beach.
Brett, I got to tell you, no matter how much I look at anybody's video from the Outer Banks, I'm just constantly in awe of this situation that is playing out here. But in particular, your drone video here showing me some new angles and heights that I haven't seen before. For instance, those pools being, embattled by the waves and all the debris that is now scattered along the beaches there. Tell us a little bit, for anybody who hasn't spoken or heard you speak before on our show, what do you and Chris do? Why are you flying these drones, and maybe where have I seen this footage before, and why does it feel familiar to me?
Well, James, I'm a meteorologist, so I'm going out for my network. I work as a reporter for Weather Nation, so I'm out there, definitely during storms that are of significance. And we felt like, the Outer Banks had been battered. Things were already kind of compromised out there, and we knew a nor'easter was coming in. So it was, time to get out and go see what happened. So, we knew that the big story was we already had some homes that had been taken out. And honestly, we were concerned that more were going to be taken out. And I've got a question before I get into where you've seen this video. Sam, can you enlighten me on something if you happen to know? Because the homeowners of these residences that are on the beach itself, is it true that those homeowners are kind of stuck until, like in terms of insurance, until the home is completely destroyed as a total loss and taken out? Because we were told through multiple third-party sources that the sad thing is that they get condemned because most of them have been rental properties, so you can inhabit the home, but the homeowner or the owner of the property can't claim insurance until the home is completely, destroyed. Basically, they know it's going to be a total loss, so they can't do anything about it. It's not like you can go in and repair it. Is that true?
That's 100% correct. You just mentioned about the septic tanks. Once those septic systems are compromised, the home is condemned by Dare County, by the Dare County Health Inspector. That's who covers septic tanks. Once that happens, it can't be occupied because you don't have a flushing toilet. And there's other structural reasons that the code enforcement, et cetera, can condemn it. But so those houses cannot be occupied, and the homeowner themselves has no option. Insurance is not going to pay for you to demolish it. We've been fortunate enough to have a few homeowners who've been able to get their houses moved. Rodante's a good example of that. Buxton is less because, again, they have to be so far back from where the first vegetative piece of land is. There's just so many different angles there. There have been federal buyout programs that came and went in the early 90s and that, instantly were popular and instantly got shut down. And, some of the things that go on with these houses too, is the fact people don't realize these aren't $1 million, $2 million homes. In many cases, these are people who built houses on the Outer Banks in the 1970s and 1980s who were fortunate enough to get a very economical piece of land. They built a nice little salt box, couple of bedrooms, a bathroom or two, and a kitchen and a living room. These aren't 12, 20 bedroom houses that are falling in. These are 4 or 5 bedroom houses at most. And those aren't rich folks. These are folks that when there was a Ford F-150 truck plant in Norfolk, Virginia, they drove every day from Currituck. They drove every day from Williamsburg, wherever, and worked the line 8 hours, 12 hours a day and made enough money to buy themselves a little house. But some of these are, again, got a mortgage on them. Some of them don't, the ones that have collapsed. So no, yes, that is correct. If the insurance company's not paying for them to tear them down, the only avenue they have is get a contractor lined up that's going to go out there and clean up the mess that these houses are going to make when they fall. And the insurance will reimburse them for that, or they'll cover the mortgage or whatever else. But yeah, that is 100% correct.
Wow. Well, that's what we heard, and that's kind of what I expected, because it's not like you can repair it, all the new regulations, and then with the septic system, and you can't move them. So it's just interesting to hear the stories, because that's a unique story. You don't hear things like that, and this is one of the few areas where you hear that type of thing. We usually hear about insurance horror stories from people that have been impacted by hurricanes, but not people that are just getting impacted by the surf on a day-to-day basis or a storm-to-storm basis, as they say. But James, back to your other question, the drone video. We were out. We, operate LSM, so I was able to basically distribute our video across to the masses. We've got contracts with the Weather Channel, with AccuWeather, with really, you name it. So you saw it, ABC, NBC, CBS, all the big box media companies had access to it and purchased the video. They license our content from us. So that's kind of our primary source of revenue from things like this, that continues to get us out to report and to also, give information to the EMs, to the Weather Service, work with the Sheriff's Department. And then, our new initiative that we have now, we started HazCams 2 years ago, which is basically a static tower camera network, or PTZ tower camera network, where we have 4K UHD cameras on towers, and we have weather equipment. Well, in these cases where we have these major storms, we also have our mobile units that are 4K static cameras that will transmit.